The silver ship slid out of hyperspace like a silent ghost. From the darkness of space, Earth floated below blue oceans, white clouds, and green continents turning slowly in the sunlight. Virelia stood at the observation window, her violet eyes scanning the planet. She was an alien scientist from the Galactic Council, an expert in studying developing species. To her, Earth was nothing special, just another small world with a primitive people. She had read the reports. Humans still fought wars, still burned fuel, still believed in old superstitions. Compared to the great empires of the galaxy, they were children playing in the mud. Her voice was cold, primitive, nothing more. And yet, she was here. The Council had given her a strange assignment: study human reproductive biology. At first, she thought it was a joke. Virelia was used to studying planetary ecosystems, climate systems, and large-scale species behavior. Not this, but the order was clear. She was to collect samples, run microscopic analysis, and report any unusual activity. She had no interest in unusual activity. In her mind, there was nothing humans could show her that the galaxy didn't already know. Still, orders were orders. Her lab was small but advanced. Built into the heart of her ship, machines hummed, scanners glowed, and a large table in the center held the sample container. Inside, floating in nutrient solution, was a small drop of human biological material freshly collected by her probe. From an Earth medical facility, Virelia sighed. She activated the nanoscope, the most powerful magnifying device in the known galaxy. The image appeared on the wall screen, showing the microscopic world in stunning detail. At first, she saw nothing unusual, just fluid, chemical traces, and she stopped breathing. Something moved, one shape, then two, then hundreds. Tiny forms darted across the screen, each one long and streamlined, with a small round head and a tail that whipped back and forth. They swam. No, they raced through the liquid with speed and determination. Virelia leaned closer. Her hearts beat faster. In her galaxy, most microscopic life forms drifted slowly or relied on external currents to move. These human swimmers moved with purpose. They had a direction. They had a goal. She touched the console, running a movement scan. Numbers appeared. Her eyes widened. At their size, these creatures were moving faster than anything she had ever recorded at the microscopic level. If scaled to human height, they would be faster than the galaxy's best STARSHIPS. Impossible. She increased the magnification. Now, every detail was visible: the flick of their tails, the twist of their heads, the coordinated bursts of speed. They were like soldiers charging into battle, small but unstoppable. Virelia whispered to herself, "How can this be? They are microscopic." Her mind raced through possibilities. Genetic modification? No, humans didn't have the technology for such precision. Random mutation? Highly unlikely. Then what? The Council reports had never mentioned this. No other species in the Galactic Archive had such powerful micro-level movement. She ran an endurance test. Most microscopic creatures in the galaxy could move for seconds, maybe minutes, before exhausting their energy. But these human swimmers kept going. 10 minutes, 15, 20. Their energy efficiency was beyond natural logic. Virelia's fingers tapped rapidly on the console. She checked for external energy sources. None. She checked for hidden technology. None. It was all natural. For the first time in years, she felt something she had not felt in her long career: curiosity. What were these tiny creatures really for? Why would nature give such speed and endurance to something so small? What did it say about the humans themselves? She remembered the Council's words: humans are a low-level, non-threatening species. But now, she wasn't so sure. Virelia adjusted the scan to track their navigation. The swimmers weren't moving randomly. They turned, corrected course, and continued toward a target, something invisible to her instruments, but obvious to them. They moved like guided missiles, each one with a mission it refused to abandon. Her hearts pounded. They are not just fast, they are relentless. The hum of her ship seemed louder now, as if the whole vessel was holding its breath with her. The dark space outside the window felt heavier, more watchful. If the smallest part of a human was built to chase, adapt, and never give up, then what did that mean for the humans themselves? Virelia zoomed out, letting the screen fade to black. The image of those tiny swimmers stayed in her mind, burning like a secret she wasn't ready to share. Her mission had only just begun, but something inside her had already changed. She had come to Earth thinking humans were nothing. Now, she wasn't sure they were harmless at all. And deep inside, a quiet fear began to grow. Virelia didn't sleep that cycle. The image of the microscopic swimmers played over and over in her mind, like a loop she couldn't break. She had seen the deadliest predators in the galaxy. She had dissected creatures that could crush steel. With their jaws, she had observed viral life forms that could wipe out entire cities. But never had she seen life that moved like this. The more she thought about it, the stranger it became. Why would evolution give such extreme speed and endurance to something so small? There was no sense in it, unless humans needed it. Her lab was dark except for the glow of the nanoscope. She loaded a second sample, this time from a different human donor. The screen came alive. They were here again, hundreds of swimmers, thrashing their tails, charging forward with the same tireless urgency. She slowed the scan speed, watching every twist of movement. The tails bent in perfect rhythm, propelling them through the liquid with a kind of grace that reminded her of predatory fish on her homeworld. Each one avoided collisions with the others, slipping past like train flyers, avoiding midair crashes. Virelia's fingers danced over the console, running deeper analysis. Their navigation wasn't random. They were sensing chemical signals, heat gradients, even micro-vibrations, reacting instantly to any shift in their environment. And they did it without thought, without hesitation. Her chest tightened. This was programming, not machine programming, but biological programming written into their very existence. Every part of them was built for one purpose: to find and reach their goal, no matter the obstacles. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the swirling shapes on the screen. It was strange, almost unsettling, to feel respect for something so small, but the feeling was there, and it was growing. Her ship's console beeped. An incoming message. She opened it. The voice of her superior filled the room, stern and cold. Virelia, you have been in orbit for 3 cycles and have not submitted a progress report. This is unacceptable. She hesitated. I am conducting extended observation. The results are unusual. The voice said sharply. They are primitive. Finish the assignment. Do not waste time. The council expects your report in the next cycle. The transmission ended with a flat click. Virelia sat in silence for a moment, staring at the darkened communicator. The council didn't want unusual. They wanted confirmation of their belief that humans were harmless, but now she wasn't so sure she could give them that. She turned back to the microscope. The swimmers were still moving, still fighting against the liquid currents. She wondered if this was their nature at the smallest level. What would it look like in the full human form? She needed more than lab samples. She needed to see humans in action. Within an hour, her ship's stealth systems were engaged. The craft dipped into the upper layers of Earth's atmosphere, moving silently above the night side of the planet. Cities glowed below like constellations trapped on the ground. She set her scanners to track human activity, physical contests, endurance events, anything that tested the body's limits. A signal caught her attention. A long-distance race in progress on one of the continents. Hundreds of humans running across a cityscape, their bodies drenched in sweat, their movements steady despite the pounding rain. She locked onto one runner in particular. His pace was slowing, but his face was calm, determined. His legs pushed forward again and again, ignoring exhaustion. Other runners dropped out, but he kept going. Hours passed. His body looked ready to collapse, but somehow, he crossed the finish line. Virelia sat in the pilot's chair, stunned. She had seen that same unstoppable persistence in the microscopic swimmers now. She saw it in full scale. The connection was undeniable. Humans didn't give up. Not when they were small enough to be invisible. Not when they were full-sized and facing impossible odds. Her breath came slow and heavy. This was dangerous. A species with that kind of relentless drive once they advanced far enough could outlast almost anything. armies, starvation, even extinction. She returned to orbit, her mind buzzing. Back in her lab, she placed both data sets side by side, the microscopic swimmers and the endurance runner. The patterns were the same: energy spikes, adaptive corrections, never letting go of the target. Virelia rubbed her temples. This wasn't supposed to happen. She had come to confirm the council's opinion, to check a box and leave. Instead, she had found a truth that didn't fit their comfortable view of the galaxy. She knew she should erase the data. That would be safest. But she couldn't. Instead, she began encrypting it, locking it away where only she could access it. Her ship drifted in the shadow of the Earth, its engines idle. She stood at the observation window again, looking down at the blue planet. Somewhere, down there, billions of humans were living their lives, unaware that a scientist from another world had just rewritten her understanding of them. She spoke softly to herself, almost afraid of the words. They are not primitive. They are patient predators, and one day, they will come for the stars. She didn't know yet whether she should fear that or welcome it. But one thing was certain: she was no longer an observer. She was a witness, and she could not unsee what she had seen in the stillness of her lab. The swimmers on the screen kept moving, tiny, tireless, unstoppable, and Virelia, for the first time in her career, felt very small. Virelia could not stop thinking about the human runner. The ship's logs recorded her return to orbit, but her mind had never left the ground. She replayed the footage over and over, watching the man's muscles strain, watching his lungs fight for air, watching the flicker of stubborn fire in his eyes. She had seen soldiers from dozens of worlds lose hope long before reaching that point, but not him. It was the same pattern. The swimmers in her microscope were just the beginning. This drive, this refusal to stop, was written into every layer of their being. For cycles, she told herself it was just biology. But biology alone could not explain it. There had to be something more, something hidden in their past. She accessed the Council's historical archives, filtering for recorded human encounters with alien forces. Most files were sealed. The few that remained were thin, vague reports of diplomatic incidents or containment actions with no details. That level of censorship meant one thing: the truth was dangerous. Her fingers tapped the console faster. She bypassed Council encryption, a crime that could cost her everything, and pulled a file, marked with a crimson security tag. The words glowed on her screen. Contact event, Sol system, classified. It was over 100 Earth years old. A small alien expedition, better armed and technologically superior, had tried to take Earth's resources. Their ships were faster, their weapons stronger, their armor impenetrable. By all logic, the humans should have surrendered within days, but they didn't. The report described waves of human resistance, farmers turning into fighters overnight, cities rebuilding after destruction, soldiers marching on foot across frozen lands. The invaders suffered heavy losses, not because humans were stronger, but because they simply would not stop fighting. One line in the report made her breath catch: when deprived of weapons, they used stones. When deprived of stones, they used their hands. When deprived of hands, they used their teeth. Virelia leaned back slowly, feeling the cold metal of her chair through her uniform. She could see it now. This was the same code she had seen in the swimmers and the runner. From the microscopic to the historical, humans were made to endure. Her ship's AI chimed softly, warning her of an incoming vessel. She glanced at the radar, a patrol craft from the Council's Enforcement Division. They were scanning for unauthorized research activity. Virelia switched off her external beacons and drifted into the shadow of the moon. She didn't have time to explain why she was breaking protocol. If the Council knew what she had discovered, they would bury it deeper than any archive and possibly remove her along with it. When the patrol craft passed, she released the breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Her fingers hovered over the console, but instead of closing the files, she opened another. This one contained medical scans from a covert observation mission on Earth's battlefields. She saw it again: injuries that should have been fatal, but the humans had kept moving. Hearts still pumping despite damage, muscles still contracting. In the final moments of life, there was a resilience here that went beyond mere survival instinct. She began to wonder if this trait had made them dangerous to other species, long before the Council began watching them. Perhaps humanity's greatest weapon was not their machines or their tactics, it was the fact that they would keep coming until nothing was left to stop them. Her gaze drifted to the planet below. She imagined them, centuries from now, stepping into the wider galaxy, armed with ships, weapons, and the same relentless will. She saw them spreading out like the swimmers in her microscope, each one driven by the same unyielding purpose. Virelia shook her head, trying to dismiss the thought, but it clung to her like static electricity, impossible to shake off. She returned to the microscope, loaded another sample, and watched again. Each swimmer on the screen moved without hesitation, as if the concept of failure simply did not exist in their world. She remembered the classified report's final sentence, written by a defeated alien commander. We did not lose to their weapons. We lost to their will. For a long time, she said nothing. The hum of the ship filled the silence, a low, steady pulse like the beat of an unseen heart. Then she began recording her own notes, not for the Council, but for herself. She documented the swimmers, the runner, the historical records, the medical scans. She connected them into a pattern, a warning. She didn't know if she was protecting the humans from the Council, or the galaxy from the humans, maybe both. But she knew one thing: the rest of her mission could no longer follow the Council's rules. Her ship's engines powered up, slow and quiet. She set a new course, not away from Earth, but closer. She would blend into their satellite network, hide in the noise of their communications, and watch them directly. Virelia touched the observation glass one last time, the swirling blue of the planet reflecting in her violet eyes. Somewhere down there, humans were running, building, fighting, loving, living with the same fire that had carried them through centuries of struggle. She whispered, almost with reverence, "You are not what they think you are." The swimmers on her screen surged forward, as if agreeing, and in that moment, she understood something dangerous. If the galaxy ever came for Earth again, it wouldn't matter how powerful their weapons were. The humans would just keep coming. The message arrived without warning. Virelia had been in her lab for hours, tracing patterns in the microscopic swimmers' movements. When the lights dimmed and the ship's communicator flared red, the Council's emblem appeared, cold and sharp. Against the dark, her superior's voice filled the air, calm but edged with steel. "Virelia, your data transmissions have been irregular. You are far behind schedule, and your location reports do not match your assigned orbital path." She kept her tone neutral. "I am conducting additional analysis. The samples required more observation than expected." A pause, heavy enough to make her hearts shift. "We remind you," the voice continued, "that the humans are a level to civilization. They pose no strategic threat to the Council. Your task is simple: confirm this and leave. Do not overestimate them, as others have." The words "as others have" lingered like smoke in the air. She wanted to ask who those others were, but the channel cut off before she could speak. She sat in the silence, staring at the blank console. That phrase confirmed what she already suspected: the Council had a history with humans, and they didn't want her digging into it, which meant she would dig deeper. Her hands moved quickly over the controls. She accessed her hidden archive and pulled up more of the sealed files she had stolen from the Council database. The further she went back in time, the stranger the stories became. Fleets retreating from Earth's orbit, colonies destroyed not by invasion, but by human infiltration, even trade negotiations that ended abruptly, with alien diplomats simply disappearing. The official explanations were always the same: political breakdown, environmental hazard, natural disaster. But Virelia could see the truth between the lines. The humans had a way of turning situations slowly, subtly, until they were the ones standing at the end. She thought of the swimmers again, how they altered course instantly to avoid obstacles, but never stopped moving toward the goal. Was this the same pattern playing out on a larger scale over centuries? Her ship's sensors pinged softly, an automated alert. Something was moving in low orbit beneath her. She adjusted the view and caught sight of a human launch vehicle climbing toward the edge of the atmosphere. A cluster of satellites clung to its spine like a chain of silver beads. Virelia watched as the rocket shuddered and roared into space. It was crude by Council standards, loud, slow, inefficient, but it carried a kind of raw determination the humans weren't waiting for. Permission from the galaxy. They were climbing upward on their own terms. She tracked the satellites once they separated, spreading like seeds into different orbits. Each one had a task: communications, weather mapping, surveillance, and together they created a web of information no other level to species had ever assembled so quickly. Virelia realized something unsettling the humans were already doing, on a planetary scale, what their microscopic swimmers did in a single drop of fluid, spreading out, covering ground, adapting instantly to their environment. Her console beeped again. But this time, it was not the Council. The signal came from deep space, far beyond Earth. A patrol craft, Council-owned, was changing course toward her position. The timing was too close to be coincidence. She knew what this meant. The Council didn't just want a report anymore, they wanted to make sure she was following orders. She cut her ship's main transponder and slid into the shadow of a derelict satellite. Her stealth systems engaged, masking her presence in the electronic chatter of Earth's orbital traffic. From here, she could watch without being seen. The patrol craft drifted past slowly, scanning the area with thin beams of blue light. Virelia stayed perfectly still, her breath shallow, her eyes fixed on the monitor. After a few tense minutes, the craft turned away, engines flaring, and vanished into the dark. She exhaled slowly, her thoughts sharper than ever. The Council was nervous enough to watch her closely. That meant she was onto something real, something worth hiding. Virelia turned her attention back to Earth. In her mind, the humans were no longer a subject of casual study. They were an unanswered question, one the galaxy didn't know how to face. She remembered the runner pushing through the rain, the ancient soldiers who fought with stones, the swimmers charging through the fluid without rest. Different scales, different times, same unbreakable line. Her gaze locked on the planet below. The clouds shifted, revealing the deep blue sweep of the Pacific. Somewhere down there, millions of humans were waking up, going to work, building, inventing, and dreaming. None of them knew she was watching. None of them knew the galaxy was already thinking about them, deciding whether to fear them, control them, or destroy them. The hum of the ship seemed louder now, pressing in around her. She reached for the recording console, not for the Council, but for herself. Her voice was quiet, deliberate. Observation, Cycle 7. Humans are not passive. They do not yield. Every scale of their biology, every fragment of their history, points toward a singular truth: they are made to advance, and nothing in their nature allows retreat. She stopped the recording and stared at the swirling blue below. In that moment, she knew she couldn't warn the Council. If they understood what she was starting to see, they wouldn't wait. They would strike first, and she wasn't sure who would win. She stepped away from the console, letting the silence settle. On her monitor, a slow-motion replay of the swimmers looped again. Their tails flicked. They darted forward. They corrected course without pause. They never stopped. Neither, she thought, would the humans. The decision to go down was not made lightly for Cycles. Virelia had been content to watch from orbit, safe in the cold distance of space. But the images on her screens had begun to feel hollow. Numbers, patterns, and recorded movements could only tell her so much. If she wanted the truth, she needed to see humans with her own eyes, see how their drive worked when the stakes were real, when comfort was stripped away and survival was the only option. That the stealth module hummed to life. As her vessel slipped into the lower atmosphere, the blue of the planet rose around her, the clouds breaking to reveal jagged mountains and restless seas. She didn't pick a city. She chose a place where humans pushed themselves by choice, where danger was part of the test. Her scanners had found it days ago, a frozen range in the northern hemisphere. Temperatures dropped far below what most species considered survivable. Yet humans came here willingly, to climb its icy faces and walk its endless ridges. The thought alone fascinated her. She brought the ship low, camouflaging it against a glacier's white expanse, and stepped out into the biting wind. The cold was sharp even through her environmental suit, but it was nothing compared to what the humans faced in their thin layers of protective fabric. Through the visor, she spotted them, a team of 6, moving slowly across the ice, roped together for safety. One by one, they drove metal spikes into the frozen surface, pulling themselves upward against the slope. Every step looked like a battle. Virelia switched on her bioscanner. Heart rates spiked, muscles strained to their limits, oxygen levels dipped dangerously low. Any other species would have turned back, but not these. They moved with the same steady persistence she had seen in the runner, in the soldiers from the archives, and in the swimmers beneath her microscope. Hours passed, the wind howling, snow blinding. She stayed hidden among the rocks, recording every movement. Then one of the climbers slipped. The rope snapped taut, jerking the others back. The fall could have dragged them all into the abyss. Instead, the team anchored themselves instantly, feet digging into the ice, hands gripping their tools until their knuckles turned white. They pulled the fallen climber back up, and without a word, kept moving. Virelia felt a strange pull in her chest. This was no microscopic instinct. This was choice. They weren't just built to endure, they wanted to endure. They accepted the pain as part of the journey. She followed them to their camp that night. They huddled around a small fire, steam rising from their breath, laughing quietly despite the cold. She could hear them through her translator stories of past climbs, of storms survived, of friends who didn't make it but were remembered. There was no fear in their voices, only a strange kind of pride that it reminded her uncomfortably of her own species explorers, long before they had joined the council, back when they still took risks, still fought against the unknown instead of controlling it from a safe distance. The next day, she tracked a different group, this one far from the mountains. Deep in the open sea, a storm had caught them, and their small vessel was being thrown like a toy by the waves. She hovered above the clouds in stealth mode, her sensors locked on their fragile craft. The humans fought the storm for hours. They worked in unspoken coordination, each one anticipating the other's movements. When a wave smashed over the deck, they didn't stop to complain or panic, they simply adjusted and kept going. The sea wanted to break them, but it couldn't. She recorded it all, noting how their bodies reacted under extreme strain. Even when their energy reserves were nearly gone, something inside them refused to give up. It was the same pattern again, adaptation without hesitation, persistence without end. By the time she returned to her hidden vessel, the data was overwhelming. This was no coincidence. It was a truth that stretched across every human she had observed, from the smallest cell to the largest active will. She sat in her chair, the hum of the engines faint beneath her. The council's warning echoed in her head. Do not overestimate them, but she already had. Her gaze drifted to the planet outside her window, in the mountains, in the oceans. In every city and village, there were humans testing themselves, climbing, running, building, surviving. They didn't know someone was watching. They didn't know the galaxy might one day come for them. She thought of the patrol craft from before, of the sealed archives, of the commanders who had underestimated Earth. A slow understanding settled over her. If the galaxy truly understood what humans were capable of, they wouldn't just prepare for them, they would try to destroy them before they had the chance to rise. Virelia's hands hovered over the console. She could send the council her official report right now. She could label humans as harmless and move on. But the truth pressed heavy against her mind. If she lied, she would be protecting them. If she told the truth, she might be signing their extinction. For the first time in her career, she didn't know which choice was right. Outside, the sun rose over Earth's horizon, flooding the ice and sea with gold. Her eyes followed the light as it spread, touching every corner of the world. Somewhere down there, humans were waking up to another day, ready to push forward, no matter the cost. She turned off the recorder. Some truths, she decided, weren't ready for the galaxy. Not yet. Virelia didn't intend to find the truth. She had meant to lock the human data away, keep it safe until she decided what to do with it. But curiosity, dangerous. Insistent, had other plans. The more she told herself to leave the council's sealed files alone, the more her fingers itched to open them. One night cycle, with the ship drifting in high orbit and Earth's lights glittering below. She broke. Her encryption tools sliced through the first layer of security. then the second. Layers of false data peeled away until a new file structure appeared. Older than anything she'd seen. It wasn't labeled with the standard numerical tags. It had a name. Written in the ancient script of the Council's founders, she translated it, the Silent War. Her heart slowed. Wars were never silent unless someone wanted them erased. She opened the first entry. The field's images flickered to life, grainy footage from centuries ago. Long before Earth was officially contacted, human ships primitive by galactic standards darted through asteroid fields. Chased by sleek alien craft, the humans weren't. Faster, but they used the rocks for cover, slingshotting around gravity wells, forcing their pursuers into collision after collision. There was no sound, but Virelia could almost hear the panic in the alien movements. The humans didn't fight. Like other species, they didn't cling to formation or retreat in order. They scattered, adapted, and came back from angles no one expected. The second file was worse. A council fleet landed on Earth, bringing overwhelming force. Cities burned. Infrastructure collapsed. By every military projection, resistance should have lasted weeks at most. Instead, it stretched for years. The humans bled, starved, and froze, but they kept fighting. Villages became fortresses. Supply lines vanished into wilderness. Alien patrols went missing in forests and deserts, never to be seen again. A commander's report scrolled across the screen. They do not think like prey. They do not stop when beaten. They only become quieter until they strike again. We could not hold the planet. Virelia's eyes moved to the final entry. This one was just a single sentence, carved into the record like a scar. Destroying them now will cost us more than waiting until they destroy themselves. She leaned back slowly, the words echoing in her mind. The Council had chosen to leave Earth alone, not because humans weren't a threat, but because they were too much of one. They were gambling that humans would collapse on their own before they became advanced enough to challenge the galaxy. But humans hadn't collapsed. They'd climbed mountains, crossed oceans, reached space. Even now, in their infancy among the stars, they were expanding faster than most leveled civilizations. Virelia realized something cold and sharp. If the Council knew humans were progressing this quickly, they might change their strategy. They might decide it was safer to end the threat now. Her screen dimmed, showing her own reflection. Her violet eyes stared back, but they didn't feel like hers anymore. She had come here thinking she was the observer, the scientist, the neutral mind. Now she was holding knowledge that could alter the future of an entire species. She closed the files and encrypted them under a code only she could break. Then she powered down her ship's main systems and drifted, hidden in Earth's shadow. She needed time to think. The silence of space pressed around her, but her mind wouldn't rest. Images of the swimmers flickered in her thoughts, their speed, their endless drive. She saw them mirrored in the runner's steady strides, in the climber's frozen hands, in the sailor's battle against the storm. And now she saw them in the faces of the long-dead fighters who had turned back the Council's fleets. She thought of the patrol ships, of the cold voice warning her not to overestimate humans. She understood now it wasn't caution, it was fear. The Council didn't want her to overestimate humans because they already had long ago. And lost, Virelia rose from her chair and walked to the observation window. Earth turned slowly below, its oceans glinting in sunlight. Its continents spread like a map of unfinished stories. Billions of humans lived down there. Unaware of the choice now sitting in her hands, she could tell the Council the truth, and they would act, or she could lie, and the humans would have more time they would use well. If their history meant anything. Her comms system crackled to life, pulling her from her thoughts. It wasn't the Council this time. The signal was faint, fragmented, human in origin. She filtered it through her translator. It was a distress call from a small research ship, stranded in orbit, its crew trapped with failing life support. The location was only minutes away. She hesitated. Intervening would mean breaking more laws. Direct contact with humans was forbidden without authorization. But leaving them to die would weigh heavier than any regulation. Her hand moved before she could think. Engines roared to life, and the ship turned toward the beacon. As she flew, She realized this wasn't just about saving a handful of humans. It was about making a choice, choosing a side, even if no one else knew it yet. The stars wheeled overhead. The blue planet grew smaller. Behind her, and in the quiet between engine pulses, she thought of the Council's final sentence in that old file. Maybe they were wrong. Maybe humans wouldn't destroy themselves. Maybe they were just waiting for the right moment to begin. The human distress signal grew stronger as Virelia closed the distance. Through the forward viewport, the stranded vessel came into view, small, angular, painted with peeling white letters in a language she now understood. It drifted without power, spinning slowly, panels cracked from micrometeorite impacts. Her scanners confirmed the life signs: 3 humans, oxygen levels dropping fast. The ship's heat signature was fading. Without intervention, they would be frozen solid within the hour. She brought her vessel alongside and matched rotation. With a flick of her wrist, she extended the docking tube. The magnetic locks clamped onto the human hull with a dull thud. The air inside the human craft was thin, sharp in her lungs as she stepped through. Her suit kept her warm, but she felt the chill clinging to the walls. In the dim light, she saw them, 2 men and 1 woman, huddled near the control console, faces pale, eyes flicking up in disbelief. She didn't speak at first. She let her translator hum quietly, mapping their words. Who are you?" the woman asked, her voice trembling, but not in fear, more like shock. Virelia's voice was calm. "I am here to help." They exchanged glances. Then one of the men laughed, a short, breathless sound. "Guess we're not asking too many questions right now." She moved quickly, handing them portable oxygen units and emergency heat packs. From her medkit, their skin flushed with returning warmth, their breathing steadied. Even now, weak and half-frozen, their eyes scanned her, taking in every detail. Humans noticed everything. While her drones worked to stabilize the ship's systems, she spoke with them. They were researchers, testing new orbital equipment when debris struck their power ray. They had tried repairs, but the tools failed. No rescue ships were coming. Their signal had been too weak to reach ground control in time, yet they hadn't given up. She could see it in the logs: failed repair after failed repair, each one followed by another attempt, adjusting, adapting, trying something new. Even in the final minutes before she arrived, they had been working, not waiting to die. The pattern again, always the pattern. When the power came back online and the cabin warmed, they didn't collapse in relief. They immediately began checking their instruments, repairing damaged components, preparing for the next phase of their mission. Virelia studied them as they worked, her mind racing. These 3 were only a tiny sample of their species, but they carried the same unyielding thread she had seen in every human before them. It wasn't just survival, it was an unwillingness to leave anything unfinished. When the repairs were complete, she guided them back into her docking tube. They hesitated at the threshold, realizing they were about to step into a craft that wasn't human-made. She saw their caution, their curiosity, and beneath both, a flicker of trust. Inside her vessel, their eyes widened at the alien technology, but they didn't shrink away. One of the men ran his fingers over a control panel, fascinated, while the woman studied the layout as if memorizing it. "Where are you from?" she heard one ask. Virelia considered her answer carefully. "Far," she said at last. "Farther than you can imagine right now." The woman smiled faintly. "Maybe. Not for long." Those words lingered in her mind long after she returned them to their repaired ship. Long after she watched their vessel ignite its thrusters and arc back toward Earth. She could have erased their memories, wiped away every trace of her presence. It was standard protocol, but she didn't. Let them remember, let them wonder. Maybe their curiosity would drive them forward faster. When she was alone again, she stood at the observation window. Earth spun below, a glowing marble in the black. The Council's warning echoed in her mind, cold and deliberate. Do not overestimate them. But she no longer believed it was possible to overestimate humans. Every encounter, every scrap of history, every fragment of biology told the same story. They were not designed for perfection. They were designed to persist. She thought of the silent war files, of the commanders who failed to hold Earth, of the decision to wait for humans to fall apart on their own. That decision had been a mistake, They weren't falling apart. They were sharpening. Virelia turned from the viewport and began recording her final entry, not for the council, but for herself. Observation complete. She said softly, "Humans, they will not be stopped by defeat, by loss, or by time itself. They move like the smallest of their cells, fast, adaptive, relentless. And when they reach the stars in force, they will not be seeking permission." She paused, watching the curve of Earth vanish into the shadow of night. "I will not warn the council," she continued, "because by the time they understand, it will already be too late." She ended the recording and locked it away. Then, with one last glance at the blue world below, she angled her ship toward the dark reaches of space. Not to flee, but to watch from a distance, because the humans were coming, and the galaxy had no idea.